I'm Cyclon, and today I want to show you my Blade Vortex Elementalist Herald stacker. Nowadays, endgame builds always have to stack something, so we're stacking Heralds. This build had a couple of reasons why I wanted to play it, why I want to really push it to the limits, invest as much as possible into it, and play it for a good portion of this league. One of it uses two new uniques that were introduced this league that are really amazing, and another one being that it utilizes the Elementalist and Blade Vortex, which I both actually haven't played in quite a while. So adding all those things together, adding a Headhunter on top, we have a very satisfying, very fast, very zoomy build that can result in just amazing gameplay, as you likely will be seeing in the background. Now, before we're going to go into the details of the video explaining the two new uniques, explaining how we are scaling defenses and offenses, I do want to mention that I have a detailed written guide including a lot of the smaller details, so I can keep this video as compact as possible. I can focus on the core concepts and the special interactions of the build and refer to the written guide for the smaller details and smaller explanations about some of the side notes. I also will be updating both the written guide and daily updates on my website definitiveguide.com, so you can always keep up to date with whether I find a new discovery about the build, do a big change, or do some more testing. Now, all this being said, let's take a look at the two new uniques. One of the two uniques is the Foulborn Bereks Respite, specifically the double Foulborn version. This is two guaranteed explodes in one item. So it says ignited enemies you kill explode, dealing 5% of their life as fire damage, which cannot ignite, and shocked enemies you kill explode and deal 6% of their life as lightning damage, which cannot shock. Notice that our lightning damage could theoretically ignite and our fire damage could theoretically shock if we are using the Shaper of Storms and Shaper of Flames node respectively. We can further utilize this by either adding Proliferation or by adding a third explosion with like Orev's End. Now, whenever we kill one enemy that is afflicted by shock and ignite, we cause the explosions, and they are hitting other enemies, which cause the damage, which applies the ailments, hopefully killing them, and then they explode, causing another enemy that stands next to them again being hit by those. So we can keep doing a chain of explosions and just resulting in screen-wide clear, while normally our damage would just be around our character. And sometimes it even goes off-screen to just very, very satisfying explosion pop chains. Now, the other amazing unique is the Lost Unity. It's another unique that was added this league, and it grants Herald of the Hive skill. Now, Herald of the Hive has two portions. Just like every other Herald, they have a buff portion and an active portion. The active portion of Herald of the Hive is very high flat damage explosion, or rather pulse. It causes a wave of energy that goes outwards to a radius, and everything in that range will be damaged every 2 seconds. Now, applying ailments such as Shock, Ignite, and Chill with Blade Vortex, Frostbling, Shield Dash, or our explosions will give us a stack of otherworldly pressure. This otherworldly pressure will then result in our Herald of the Hive pulses to be more frequent, up to 500%. So this means that we are doing these pulses very frequently during a mapping, which can actually result in enough damage and explosion chains to clear normal maps. Alk & Go mapping, beast farming, hopping for to essence, searching for a harvest in a map, or just simple T17s, this can be enough to kill enemies. Only when we get to really juiced content will we be relying more on Blade Vortex. So we can utilize Blade Vortex only for really in simple content, just for some rares or uniques, but otherwise it just zooms through the map and leaving all our explosions to Herald of the Hive. Now, there is a second portion, that is buff grants 3% more damage per Herald skill affecting you. Now, we have over 100% increased buff effect of our Herald skills, meaning that the 3% goes to 6%. Now, we have 5 Heralds, as Herald of the Hive is considered a Herald, so we gain 30% more damage from a skill that normally reserves 25% mana and can be further reduced all the way down to, in my case, currently 11.26%. So now we have these damaging waves and we gain more damage, which applies to all of our damage. All our explosions, our heralds, our blade vortex, and our frostbling, again causing us to easier cause more explosions and more damage. Makes it a really nice package for just one ring slot. Now, of course, this is not everything to the build. We are also using a lot of other things. We can utilize a Headhunter, as Blade Vortex is a physical skill. It being a physical skill and us converting the damage from physical to cold means that we can utilize almost all buffs we can steal from rare enemies. We can get the physical aura, we can get the energy shield aura, we can get haste for faster moving around, we can get max life, we can get Fizz's extra damage, we can get more. The only thing we cannot use is more projectiles, as we are not causing actual projectiles with Blade Vortex. We have these spinning blades around us, but those are considered an AoE damage and not a projectile damage. So I guess there are 2 or 3 mods we can use from a Herald, but we can still utilize a lot of them for both survivability and for damage. Now, this build is using 5 Heralds, which means it reserves a lot of mana. The other mana we're utilizing for either Hatred or Grace. If we want to use Grace for defensive, we use Hatred in a Guardian's Blessing setup, which gets me to my Golems in a bit, but otherwise what I'm currently using is Zero Tree in a Guardian's Blessing setup and using Hatred, which I do lose survivability. I don't have as much evasion, but we are adding Freeze into the build, which hopefully gives us enough survivability that we don't need the evasion, as we just kill enemies in the explosion chains before they reach us, or if they reach us, we freeze them in place and then we kill them in a little bit. Now, let's talk a bit about the golems before we talk about the defensive setups. We are utilizing 4 golems. We're using a stone golem, a flame golem, a lightning golem, and an ice golem. This grants us crit chance, attack and cast speed and mana regen, AoE and damage, as well as life regeneration and increased defenses. So these golems, just like with the heralds, we are buffing their buff effect, getting up to double, and slightly more than double actually. I think the buff effect is 150% without enhance, so we are looking at 2.5x buff effect on all the 4 buffs we are getting. We are further utilizing golems with a Guardian's Blessing. Now this Guardian's Blessing will kill these stone golems over time. But because we are an elementalist and we have access to Leech of the Primordial, our golems resummon after 4 seconds. So the 2 golems we are spawning in with our stone golems of the hordes will die, respawn, and we have the buff again, which makes it really neat to have. But of course there's more to the build. We can also utilize our stone golems, which is why we're using stone golem of the horde, to apply taunt to enemies, meaning every enemy that is taunted won't attack us, will attack the golem, just taking a little bit of heat off from us in a map, or maybe making the boss focus the golem with the AoE attacks and not us, allowing us to easier dodge those. Now, directly transitioning into our defensive setup. We are using a bunch of things for the defenses. We have a life and energy shield hybrid pool. We mitigate damage with graft, such as Hearted Flame graft, for giving us a molten shell more or less. Or if we apply exposure, we can also try preserving stillness from an Aegis tool graft, just giving us damage mitigation. We have access to Bastion of Elements, so giving us another Aegis on our Elementalist node, or we can alternatively use Shape of Winter, which reduces the damage shield enemies do up to 20%, or we can use Shape of Flames, converting physical damage from enemies to fire damage, meaning our Fizz max hit is improved. We also have access to Occultist or Necromancer nodes. Right now I'm testing out with Frigid Rake from the Occultist, which gives us more cold damage, which is our main portion of damage, gives chilled enemies deal less damage. We are immune to chill and freeze, meaning we cannot be frozen, we cannot be chilled, we cannot slowed down that way. And it has a chance to freeze chilled enemies every 4 seconds, which is a flat chance, so it ignores the conditions to be frozen on bosses or unique enemies, as far as I'm aware at least. So overall a really nice all-rounding node. Now, I am not using the new Lycia Bloodline node, which, to be fair, would make a lot of sense to our build, but this node is only giving us damage. And I don't really look at more damage right now. I rather am working towards getting more survivability, more staying alive in the maps, as I'm already mostly one-shotting with my explosion chains on everything. Now, once Herald of Unity or Herald of the Hive is added into passive building and I can test it there, I can look at the numbers, maybe it is actually worth taking, but the other Elementalist nodes currently grant me more, which is why I'm currently testing with those. I guess the last thing we can mention about the survivability setup is we have Blast Freeze, which means our freeze is spreading, and we are freezing because we're doing a lot of cold damage, so everything that survives any of our explosion chains and is actually getting towards us is getting frozen, and then it is gonna be staying frozen until it's dead and we can move on. Now, let's talk about our damage scaling. So we have a lot of heralds and the golems which all grant us base buffs. So we have more damage, we have an increased damage, we have more AoE, we have increased attack and cast speed, we have life regen, we have increased crit chance, then we gain flat lightning and flat cold damage from Herald of Ice and Thunder, we gain physical extra fire damage from Herald of Ash, and we gain more physical damage from Herald of Purity. Now all those Herald buffs are also amplified with our buff effect, just like the Herald of the Hive, allowing us to just have a generic big damage increase, which applies to our Blade Vortex, but also all our Explosion and Ring Tree Blast and the Herald of the Hive, just causing more and more damage, which is great for us. Now to further amplify that damage, we are scaling gem levels, which gets our Blade Vortex to level 29 or 30. At level 29, we slightly increase the AoE of our Blade Vortex more. Also, Blade Vortex increases its base damage with levels, so scaling levels over things like a Replica Dragon's Flight, about a weapon and shield is also really great, as it gives more base damage, it gives more AoE, it gives more damage, just really great to have gem level. We then get, instead of using a classic 6 link on our body armor, we're using an Archdemon Crown with the Corrupted Essence modifier. Socketed gems do 30% more elemental damage. Combine that with the Shaper suffixes, socketed gems are supported by Hypothermia and have base critical strike chance, resulting in our helmet being an actual 7 link, but only having the mana cost of a 5 link. So we are giving more damage to our Blade Vortex without actually requiring the support circuits, making it even better for us. And lastly, of course, we have the earlier mentioned explosion chains, so then whenever we do kill something, it starts an explosion, and as long as we have enough damage, the explosion keeps happening until the entire pack is dead. And if not, if they don't die, again, as mentioned earlier, we have our freeze for easy on that. There's another neat interaction I'm using on the build, which is I'm using a Sindu Swallow Urn, which you can apply an additional curse during effect. Now this isn't perfect on bosses, but it is good enough that as long as we kill everything fast enough, we have this 7-second uptime to apply Frostbite with a Tool Graft and manually cast Assassin's Mark to curse the enemy so they take more damage. We have better crit chance against them, we have more crit multi against them, and then with Frostbite they take more cold damage, which again is the major part of our damage, so just easier damage on the enemy. I've mentioned pretty much everything about the core concept of the build. If anything was unclear, if I've forgotten anything or you got any questions, as always, you can ask me in the comment section on Discord or during live stream on Twitch. I will try to always answer as quickly as possible. All this being said, have a lovely day, and I'll be seeing you either on my next video or live stream. Until then, have a lot of fun with Blade Vortex and Herald stacking. Goodbye.